All righty, there we go. It does it every time. And you know what? This time I left myself in there. Hello, everyone. Greetings. How you doing? Yeah, I left myself in with the volume down, but as soon as the video starts to play, it goes back up automatically. Welcome, everyone, to Esoteric Egypt Part 9. We got 9 under our belt today.
Dang, already? Hard to believe.
Yep. And this evening, we have with us Madame Khadija Hammond, and she's back with us this evening. Thank you for coming, Khadija. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. And then we have Dalibor Suchi, Sun Rabbit. And Dalibor's just back from a trip home.
Hi.
A trip home to Czechoslovakia for some business. So now you're back in Germany. Must be easy as driving from state to state here, you know.
Well, it was an unusual experience because the borders were closed for how many months? Almost a year. So yeah, it was a long overdue experience.
Finally back up and open and running.
Good for you.
And of course we have our technical show host and co-host Lori, Pure Love Ascension.
Good to be with you.
Provides all the technical goodies for everything that we do here. And all the tech support, even to Khadija, right, Khadija?
Yep.
So just a quick shout out. Hi, everyone in chat, in our chat room. We have Dark Truth. Good to see you. And Nile. David Castles. Good to see you, brother. And we have, let's see who else we've got down here. Chloe. Chloe's in already.
Mm-hmm.
Gizza. Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Kills
is here.
Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. Good to see you.
Cat.
And we have Lucky Stone. Good to see you, Lucky. Favor and blessing to you as well. So as folks start to trickle in, let me just tell you briefly what we're doing here this evening. We're so happy Khadija could join us live at 3 a.m. in Egypt.
Wow.
3 a.m. So we thank you for doing this. And
No
same
problem.
for Dalibor's, what, 2 a.m.?
3 a.m. Same
Both of
time
you are
as
3
Egypt.
a.m.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yep.
Wow. Well, we really appreciate it, you know. Khadija sent us a couple video clips that Lori spliced together. And I will tell you from the get-go, if you have other shows to go to at the change of the hour, go ahead and go and come back and watch later, because this video itself will be pausing it now and then for discussion. We'll try to let it play through to the extent possible, but it is 55 minutes long.
Yeah, but
so
it's
we
really
will run over, and I know Nina, the Mystic, is doing her card pulls right now, and I know that after us is usually Scotty Roberts. He's usually on with a special guest tonight at 10 o'clock. So we understand if you have to leave the chat room or leave the viewing to go over there, just do us a favor, leave a comment, hit whether you liked it or not before you leave so that we can get that feedback. It's very helpful to us. All right. Without further ado, let me just talk briefly about Khadija, I was so excited that you were doing this particular visit to this particular part of Luxor. There's been in the esoteric community a lot of discussion lately about the blending and balancing out of divine feminine and masculine energies, and about how things are shifting right now. We're going through a major shift, and there's going to be more and more of the feminine involvement than there has been in the past several decades. And it's interesting that the ancients not only recognized the necessity of having some balance between feminine and masculine, they worked really hard to make it happen. And we're going to find out just how hard they worked to make it happen. But I was reading up about this, Khadija, because we never got taught this in college. When we were studying ancient, Egyptology, we didn't get the kind of exposure to the esoteric side of things. You had to take world religious studies to understand religion. But when it comes to spirituality, outside of the confines of religious order and structure, there was very little I was taught at my university. And Maryland was one of the most extensive on Egyptology. So we didn't cover this kind of thing. So I have since found out, and I've been looking at it for years, right underneath the Gizza plateau, right under Luxor and under this temple are two ley lines, energy lines. And it is believed by some of your esoteric archaeologist friends, not your quackademics, as you call them, that that Luxor itself represents the heart chakra, that the heart chakra being where the meeting of male and female energy occurs, within us. And that these two energies should be allowed to coexist in balance and in harmony. And if we don't have this balance, and for many reasons these days we don't, we have an energy blockage. So they apparently, according to some of these historians and archaeologists who are more on the esoteric side of the non-academic field, they felt that the temples were actually, because of the stone structure, the red granite structures inside these temples, having the black and the white and the red minerals in them, were designed to amplify and utilize the energy that they said from above and below, from within, from without, from above and below. So the temple is actually built on the crossing of these two ley lines. It's a cross where there's a rising of natural, very strong energy, and that energy from above is the great cosmos. And that represents spiritual energy. The temple was built to allow these two energies to harmonize, and in turn to give mankind a natural environment to allow his harmonies, our own inner energy, in other words, to the outer energy of the universe. So apparently, when you all are in there, and you would know this, Khadija, more than anybody else because you're in and out of these temples, but apparently each person has their own unique experience of those energies when they go in there. If they're tuned in and they really understand what it means to be connected to universe and source, they feel things that other people just don't feel.
Wow, that's interesting.
And they say that the Luxor Temple itself represented the male energy, whereas Karnak represented the female energy. So when you'd say that the pharaoh, so I'm going to go take a lunch break and I'm going to go down to Luxor. Yeah, go, honey, go. The female took over. And Khadija will explain that. It makes sense to me now, Khadija. Mm-hmm. But the temple itself, the temples themselves were built to enhance and accelerate the process of healing. Not just to give you that boost, but to accelerate the process of healing and rejuvenation and enrich the body, the mind, and the soul. That makes sense when you're going to talk about the lotus, the blue lotus, and the elixir, and how they were using that. And I'm not going to give away the secrets. But male energy represents, let's see, this guy wrote, male energy represents the structure in our life and society today. We cannot survive with an empty structure. So this is where the female energy comes in to work in perfect harmony with the male energy. The female energy fills the structure, allowing a perfect balance, the awakening of what they called the awakening of the heart. This is only part of the bigger heritage that the ancient Egyptians have left for all of mankind, and they go into the color of red, representing humanity, white, spirituality, black is the black soil of Egypt, and it's found in that granite stone that they used to construct all the inner walls of this temple to accelerate those energy ley lines. So the black soil of Egypt, white being spirituality, red being humanity. So keep that in mind. And they considered that to be, quote, the here and now, which is a popular phrase we all use. Be in the now. For them, it represented the here and the now. So when the energy from above and the energy from below meet, it forms humanity in the now. From those perspectives. So
I would add to that one observation: the fact that it's at the intersection of two ley lines intersecting forms an X. An X is the X chromosome that ties in with the female energy. The X was also a symbol of femininity, as well as the jaguar in Mayan mythology. And when you place a temple on top of that X, that temple, the architectural framework of that temple serves as sort of a sigil, like a geoglyph, to amplify whatever energies would be present at that junction.
Right. Now, this was used as an amplifier, and Khadija was going to go into a lot more of what this was for. But releasing that energy is a way of enhancing or boosting your own inner ability to do this within your own temple of your own spirit, your own soul. So whether you go to that temple and experience it or not, you can still have that experience within. It's just that it amplifies in those sacred locations. I think that's the way I'm understanding this. I could be wrong, and Khadija can explain later. So I just think it's wonderful that Khadija has come here with the guests that she's been bringing on, people she's introducing us to these ancient sites on the ground, as a way for us to reconnect with stuff that we have forgotten a long time ago. And it might help when you hear these things and see these things. Maybe you'll experience what I experienced last week when I saw the video, Khadija. All of a sudden, I remembered some scenes from Egypt, and I haven't had that before. I've had it with other places. I've never had any visions of Egypt, and I did twice. So it's like whatever this, just even talking about this and studying it and going into the temple with you on this video awoke something in me, something in my DNA memory perhaps. And I got that jolt and that tingling sensation. And I thought, wow, what would happen if I was really there physically, you know? So I'm not just saying that to promote your video. I'm sincere because I did this research and all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, whoa. And I was talking to Lori and Lori's like, you have a past memory. I'm like, I didn't see myself there. I just saw scenes from it. So maybe I was an observer. You know, I don't know what my role was, but I was there.
Maybe you were a visitor.
I don't know. I just saw different scenes of different people doing different things, but I myself don't remember playing a role or anything. So I just thought that was interesting.
It is.
You know. So
you can
anyway,
travel back in time. You can go back in time in your consciousness too, you know. I don't think that we're trapped in our bodies at all. If we know how to use our consciousness as sort of like a ship, you can travel wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
You know, we just we're in embodiment now, but when we pass on, we'll know everything because you'll get out.
Right.
Of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
This is the fun part, rediscovering things and investigating and learning, right?
Consciousness is a non-local phenomenon, and that's pretty much been established scientifically by researchers like Rupert Sheldrake.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, without Khadija, I'm going to hand it over to you because it's your video, your tour, and I'll now hand everything over to you. And when you're ready for her to roll, she'll roll.
Well, I just want to tell everybody that I think the video will speak for itself, but one thing I do remember is the joy, the absolute clarity of realizing the seasons and the times of the clock, of the turning of the seasons, and the turning of winter, spring, fall, and those energies of reproduction and those energies of spring, of new life. It is like hearing a symphony by 70 million different beings. It was like everything was rejoicing. And that's what I want to bring out, is that this whole thing was such joy that I could feel them. I could feel their joy when they were planting again for the next, the floods had started to recede, and they were getting ready for a new harvest. They're getting ready for a new awakening. And it awakens your own self, Oh, thank you, God. Thank you so much. Somebody said, "Glad to see me looking well." I look pretty bad the other time. I was so sick.
Well, we had more folks come in. Robert V from the Milky Way Soul Tribe channel is here. Hey, Robert, good to see you. And Jules, good to see you as well.
Elderberry,
sweetie, Elderberry's in here. Nice to see you. Anybody else jump in?
Mary Vince.
Mary, hi, Sister Mary.
Always good to see Mary.
Good to see you, Mary.
David Castle, of course.
Mary's our little world traveler too, and she does it like I do, but she looks into a lot of these travel opportunities and tracks things down, just like Mandy Moo does, who's out fossicking, I think. Isn't Mandy out fossicking?
Yeah.
All right, so Khadija, back to you.
Oh, no, I'm looking forward to everybody seeing this. It's a long film, but I think you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy seeing it.
Yeah,
seeing it, especially some of the frescoes are going to surprise you, because they never bring those out. They never show those.
I was very surprised.
I'll try to pause it to remind everybody when it's 5 of, so that they know, because of Scotty's show and anybody else who might be coming on, because Egypt tends to run over a few minutes. So and this one will, guys. Folks. This one will. Okay, Lori, go ahead. Hit it.
Here we go.
This is Kat from the beautiful land of Luxor. I am here at the so-called Temple of Luxor. كل سنة وانت طيب حبيبي. أيوة.
When's the Happy New Year?
Yes.
Which part of England you're from?
Oh, I don't know, dear. Maybe London. I don't know, dear. I'm from the Nile. I joke with Egyptians. Now, this temple is called the Temple of Luxor by people who don't know. It's actually called the Southern Harem. Now, this is going to be an eye-opener for you guys, and you quackomaniacs, you quackademics, don't even know what it really is, but I do. And I'm going to share this with you. We visited the temple, so-called Temple of Karnak, the other day. And this is the southern harem. In other words, this is the northern part is Karnak, the southern part is the harem. Why do they call it the harem? That's going to be an interesting subject. That's going to curl your hair, some of you. And you might want to turn it off if you're a prude. But I am not. I am 74. And I am a very serious student of Egyptology for 50 years of my life. So I've done both. I've done the metaphysical training with the Rosicrucian Order at first for 15 years. And I've traveled to India. I've traveled to nearly to Tibet. Back then it was closed because of the stupid Chinese. And I don't care if they don't like what I say, but they should have left those people alone. But what I want to tell you is this. We're in the middle of renewing this beautiful road, which is going between the two temples. where they had a huge following of people. When they would come and go, they would use this road where the sphinxes are, as you're seeing. I'll walk down there in a few minutes, okay, and let you see. Well, I'll walk down there right now. See the sphinxes? It's called the Avenue of Sphinxes, and it goes all the way actually to Karnak. But over the years, they allowed people to build houses, and unfortunately, it was lost. Now, the Department of Antiquities is renewing it, and there will be a road that goes from here all the way down to the temple known as Karnak. Now, these little temples here, or different ones, are beautiful little temples, and they have done a lot of restoration work. As you can see how beautiful it is. One of them looks like Tutmosis III. The rest of them have Ramses' face. Ramses didn't want people to forget him, so he would either build new ones or usurp the ones from someone else and put his name on it. But the man lived to be like in his 90s. And he had 200 children, so I don't know how he had time to rule. So here we have a beautiful obelisk. There was one on the other side. I believe that one is in the Champs-Élysées. I think that was in Paris. What's interesting is walking with me now. Hello, darling. Mama dog. Hello, mama dog. Hello, darling. Can you bring you any water? Hmm? So we have a watchman there. It gets a good perspective on the size of it. Now, Shirley de Lubitsch called this the Temple of Man, but it was built in stages, so therefore, it's a good idea that it was called that, and I'll tell you why, because I'm about to open your eyes to what we were about in ancient Egypt, and I'm panning around to show you. Good girl. Oh, is that your baby? Aww. She's had puppies. They're so cute. Here we have 4 statues of the rising sun, worshiping the rising sun. This is the Hot. He takes the form of baboon and also the form of the ibis, worshiping. They chatter in the morning and they raise their arms up just like that. صباح الخير. كل سنة وانت طيب. أيوة. Not photo. لا 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 ما أعرف شيء.
Camera here.
I know. That's good.
Photo?
Not photo. Not on.
Oh.
What's your name? Kamsa. Ahmed? أنت صايم؟ صايم؟ الله كريم. أنا صايمة.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
I said, are you fasting? He said, yes. God, praise God. Oh, we're in the holy month of Ramadan, and we are fasting from sunrise until sunset. We don't eat nor drink anything. No water, no nothing.
I don't know how you do it.
Learn the compassion for all of those who have nothing to eat and those who are thirsty. It's very symbolic. To me, it's thirst for actually knowledge. So we're coming in now, and we see these beautiful statues everywhere. Now, I want you to notice something right now. This has been destroyed partially, but this is Min Ammon, who is a symbol of the sexual power residing in the male. Now, the Egyptians did not look at these things as naughty the way we do. We're so messed up from our Judeo-Christian religion about sex and about the procreation, and we've gotten so evil. I hate to say it, everything is about sex, the way people dress, the way people do everything. This is a hypostyle hall, one of the hypostyle halls. But the Egyptians did not suffer from this. They actually rejoiced and worshiped and had fun on the reproductive powers. And every spring was a very important time because it was life's renewal when all the animals are building their nests and all of the reproductive processes are going on with the birds, the animals, everything. And we have, it's called the Ramses II court. Ramses probably built this, but it's quite interesting because it's a striding court. And I believe that Schwaller said that there's a permanent salt in the thigh bone, which carries all of the information of the particular person. Even when you die, that salt is still there. Now here's a mosque, which is beautiful, that was built right on top of the temple. You see that? How beautiful it is?
Yeah.
These people knew about the energy of this temple, and they wanted to have this beautiful mosque right here in the ruins of the most holy of holies of places. And it's wonderful, beautiful mosque. Now, as you can see, Ramses II court. And here is a layout of the temple, which I want you to see. If you're a grockle, you'll want to see it. And you won't need to if you're a, what we call quackademic. So there you go. You can take a look.
Yeah, girl.
Now, I'm going down, I'm walking toward God. This is going toward the Holy of Holies. Now, we had something we called the Opet Festival, which was held in the springtime. And that's when Ammon, the god Ammon, taken out of his shrine and brought here to meet with his companion Mut. And it could be also Amunet, his lover, his mistress, for a little sex play. And what they were doing was they were celebrating the wonderful time of spring when everything is going to be productive. And so this big Opet festival was celebrated, and they would come and bring the boats here. It's a huge festival of joy. Now we see the striding pharaoh. Some defaced, unfortunately, later on. And the Opet festival was flowers. Try to imagine all the priesthood in the glowing white robes, bringing this festooned boat in which resided the gold statue of none other than God, coming to visit his beloved. It's like a marriage, a sacred marriage. If you know what that is, fine. If you don't, do your homework, read up on it. Here we go, Mr. Ramses himself again. Nice statue. This one's quite well done, with a couple of his sons. I mean, the man had 200 sons, I believe. Well, he had 200 children, maybe 150 sons and the rest daughters, who knows. I mean, can you imagine what the court must have been like? The court must have been amazing.
Yeah.
Do you realize that I'm the only one in this temple? This is a gift from God. Here we have the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. And this is the God, happy. Happy, 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 happy. And he is tying the heart. You see the heart here in the windpipe. Here's the heart in the windpipe. Its feet with the sacred flowers. The lotus and the sedge plant are unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. Isn't this beautiful? So here you see the flowers growing, and here you see the lotus. Alrighty, now we're going along, all right? Now, I believe myself, I believe they say this is Horemheb and his wife has got the features, so unfortunately, or not, of Tutankhamun. To me, it looks more like him. But it's hard to say because he usurped a lot of statues that were not his, like the rest of them. He's even got touch statues with his name on them. His wife was much known to me the sister of Nefertiti, and that is the only reason why that little darling could claim anything. A right to the throne was through the line. Here's another one. How beautiful, huh? Gorgeous. I love the feet. I want you to look at these feet. I love the way they design the feet. The feet are very beautiful and fluid. You know, they're not stiff, but like they walk a lot barefoot, so they grip the ground, and their toes apparently were long and slender. This is another hypostyle hall, a small one. I'm looking for a fresco. If I can find it, I'll show you. It's the fresco of the Opet Festival. Flies are bad today. Nobody's coming in here because it's supposed to be over 100 degrees. And also because people tend to be lazy by nature. But when you have a group of tourists, you have to get them all together, and they all have to have breakfast. When you travel with me, you're going to be up early, so you better get used to it. I don't sleep all day. I do that when I'm dead. If you see little things flying around, those are flies. They're really very bothersome today. God. I'd kill them, except it's Ramadan. You're not supposed to kill anything, even flies. And I think they know it. Because they're really annoying today. They're after my sweat. All right, so we're coming into the large hypostyle hall. This hall is very important. This is where my husband made some great discoveries, and I'll show you as we go in. This was called the sacred cache of statues which were found. And I'm going to show you later. I'll take you in there in the hall where they are. What
Let's
was
just
going on
pause
with
this
the
for a second,
groundwater
Lori.
was causing these to lean.
Let's just pause this for a second. And hello, Brenda, and anyone else that's come in the past 10 minutes. It's good to see you. And Khadija is here with us live tonight, so she's going to be able to explain some things. I just want to see if Dalibor or anybody on the panel or the chat room has any questions so far before we go into the meat of this area.
Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's got the standard temple layout of like an outer court, an inner court, and the inner sanctum, or what do they call it? Not a fortress, citadel. A citadel, like a fortress within a fortress kind of setup. So yeah, you see that in quite a few ancient sites.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed when Khadija first took us in, as she was looking at the columns and that brick wall, there's 3 different kinds of stone or brick being used. It looks like this thing has been built and rebuilt and rebuilt. Khadija, you said the Romans were there at one time and built sections onto it as well?
You'll see that. Am I there?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You'll see that as we get further in. But also, I wanted to say that where the mosque is, all that brick and everything, at one time that was completely full of sand all the way up to the mosque, and a lot of it was covered. It was covered under sand, which was quite interesting. That's why it stayed so pristine for so long. And that mosque is called Abu Hagag. That's the name of the mosque. Like, you wouldn't need to know that, but I mean, it does have a name. But there's also a church there. There's a church that was built under that. So it's like, have you ever noticed how churches build on sacred sites? They seem to always build on wherever it was a sacred site before they build a church there. I don't know if it's to keep the mojo in line or what, but
well, like I said, this section was built on that cross of ley lines, two ley line energy lines.
Mm-hmm.
So these spiritual centers, when they build, just like the pyramids, when they build one pyramid on top of another, they're tapping into the energy. They know about these energy ley lines. They knew about them.
You know something interesting? I'm up here in the Gizza Plateau, and every morning I sit outside with my coffee and look at the pyramids. Well, lately I've been noticing something interesting, that the energy coming out of the top of the pyramid has a rose color, rose and white, and it goes very high up in the sky, and it looks like almost like there's one pointing down and one pointing up. It's that strong energy. It most definitely is coming out of the top of the apex of the pyramid. Every day it's doing that. And so that was the thing that we were saying, is that it's some kind of generator. It's an actual moving energy. It's doing something. It's still in operation. All three of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's interesting. I wish I could catch that on video. I might try and see what we have.
All right. Well, hi, Spirited Woman. Hi, Suzanne. All right, let's roll. I think so far it's been very good.
Department of Antiquities. Antiquities.
Iniquities.
Sent in some engineers to check it out. And they were afraid they were going to collapse because the groundwater was rising. And so they wanted to see if there was some way they could make it stronger. See, these used to be all the way up on both sides, and they've long since been destroyed. Now on this side is where the Luxor cachette was found. And you cannot believe these statues. I could not believe it myself. They were pristine, buried here, a large number from the reign of Amenhotep III. The most beautiful statues you have ever seen in your life, which I will share with you in a little while. They were found right over here on this side. So when they dug down, they hit something, and it turned out to be a statue. And they dug around, and the groundwater started rising up. And they were down in the ground, and these things started floating to the surface. My husband's a very religious man, and he was praying, sitting down there by himself at the lunchtime when everybody was gone, when all of a sudden there was a blub, 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 and a sphinx actually rose up. Out of the muddy water came the sphinx. It's almost symbolic, isn't it?
Wow.
So anyway, there are statues of the best one I've ever seen of Amenhotep III, Hathor, Isis, one of a cobra, quite a few that Horemheb claimed, but they look like Tutankhamun, and my husband and I both think it is him. Because Horemheb was coming at the end of the night. He was the beginning of the 19th, what they call the 19th dynasty. He was right after Tutankhamun and Ai, and then Horemheb. Ai didn't rule but about 3 years, I think, and then he passed on. So now here we have beautiful, you can see it's a much later date. When the Romans came in, they made quite a few changes. And,
I thought so.
It was quite amazing, really. Here we go. Now, my friends, the reproductive processes of the body are sacred and holy to the Egyptian people. So the Opet festival, you might call it a sexual orgy or something, because it was really amazing. Everybody was celebrating life, drinking wine, dancing. Hundreds of people going down that road I showed you with the sphinxes, with the boat being carried by the priesthood. And they came to the temple, and they brought her in order for her to be united with her beloved. Now, there is a Mamasi here. Well, I shouldn't say Mamasi, but it is his celebration of his divine birth, Amenhotep III. Now, the Egyptian people were well aware of certain wonderful things. Their medicines were excellent. And they have something called, it's called the Egyptian blue lotus, all right, ladies and gentlemen? But it is not a blue lotus, it's actually a water lily. And there were many people who knew the medicinal purposes of this flower. Here, that looks like it could be oil in those sacred oils that they used for offerings. Each one of these probably held one of the little statues of either Isis or Osiris or whatever, one of their gods or goddesses. They had many. And I have an idea that some of them were aspects. Look at this one. The rain is still on there. Can you see it? This was painted blue because this is happy. Happy, 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 happy. Giving wonderful things to as blessings from him, from the river. And he's one of my favorites. Well, I have many favorites. One of which is a god. Salam alaikum. كل سنة وأنت طيب حبيبي. صايم أنا هذا؟ مبروك. لا مش كويس. مش كويس. I said, are you fasting today? He goes, yes. I said, God bless you. He wanted me to go up that ramp. I'm not doing it. I went down one backwards the other day, sliding. So here you go. This is definitely Greco-Roman, as you can see. Yes.
Roman arch.
Mm-hmm.
Roman, Greco-Roman.
Is that Roman arch? Yep.
Yeah.
If they want to help. No smoking? Mafish hashish? Mafish hashish, habibi. No smoking. Mamnua, huh? I said, you can't even smoke hashish? He said, it's forbidden. I said, yes, it's forbidden. I chat off in Arabic sometimes. I'm finally learning this difficult language. So here we're going into this wonderful temple. As you can see. Yes, Amenhotep III. Talata, Amenhotep Talata.
Doctor.
You are? Amenhotep.
I can't get over the paint. The pigment is still there.
It's amazing.
Some of these are very clear.
And this whole thing was under sand, right?
Everybody, I'm sharing
Yeah.
this with all of you because some of
That's
these
probably why it's
are
still
absolutely
intact to a point.
Well, actually, it was not only because it was partially under sand, but in ancient times when this place was built, it had a roof over it. It had a wooden roof, and we don't know what it looked like because the wood didn't
Blue
survive.
lotus, I was talking
Yeah.
about before, is a plant which not strictly, but I would say right offhand, this is an aphrodisiac. This is like Viagra for both men and women. And it was a very sacred plant because for them, sex was a sacred power. It was not considered yin. So here we go. Here it is on the wall. This is blue lotus. Now they made wine from it. They made bread from it. They made incense from it. Here we go. See the buds over the jars? Some of it's bread, some of it's wine. Now, this shows the manufacturing of the oils. And you can see the king is presenting it. And look at him. He's down on one knee, showing the sacredness of the great blue lotus. And here is more pictures of it, as you can see. And I love this one. There he is as a sphinx. Because the blue lotus blows open your heart chakra. It blows open your third eye, and especially the heart, because he is transforming himself. All right, he is really the lion. He's the lion king in big time. And here he's presenting what looks like, to me, could be some kind of bread, lotus bread, which they used to make. And here he is presenting it again. But unfortunately, somebody bashed the crap. Oh, it's Amun Ra. Why do people do that? He's offering to Amun-Ra and Mut, his companion, his wife. And you see the bird here, which is Nekabit, the great vulture guardian goddess of Egypt. Here's a pretty one. This is kind of pretty. And here he is walking, and that must be Tiye. I can't tell though. I can't see the glyphs very well. With Anet, it looks like one of the goddesses, but I'm not sure which one. Dressed in the red crown, walking, and that's definitely him because I recognize the way he looks. And they're walking.
Yeah, and Marie.
I want to tell you about the blue lotus because it's very important that you realize that this flower is coming back. We are in the middle of getting ready to cultivate it, and we're going to cultivate it. Now here's the naos. This is the Holy of Holies. It's a separate building in which is kept the boat. And in the boat with double doors is this golden statue of either Amun-Ra or possibly Mut or possibly Amunet, his mistress. Even the gods have mistresses, which is quite interesting to say the least.
Yeah, that is.
You can see where it was once double doors here. They're gone now. And look at these frescoes, how beautiful they are. Here the color is
wow.
You can see King running, showing his prowess, showing that he's very, very able to be the leader. Now, I'm going to take you around and show you some very interesting frescoes.
You have to consider, like, who were these frescoes intended for? Because when you think about it, you can only see the ones that are at eye level. You can't see the ones, even if somebody could read the hieroglyphs, they couldn't necessarily read the ones that were way up there.
Oh my, Egyptian pornography.
With a raised phallus.
Sacred.
Right? He is not only that, but he's showing the flail is a measuring form. Now, a lot of these have been destroyed by, I would say, over stupid, messed up people who can't deal with it. Now, this is interesting. I want you to look at this one. Here he's offering what looks like wine to Min Amun. Min Amun, again, with this flail in the form of a measuring instrument. All right, and down here, I'll take a good look at the phallus, which shows the
Mandy Moo.
and it looks as though it's a bud. It's like he made it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. He made it in other words, I don't know, maybe he made it. I'm sorry. Now, it's very important. Pay attention. Right over here it's a destroyed, it's really hard to see, but it is.
That's Greek underneath there.
Now, in between the temple is a huge lotus flower. You see it? On either side of it are 2 lettuce. This is lettuce, which is another supposedly very good aphrodisiac and very good for the sexual energy. It comes down and ends in a shin symbol for eternity, and it's an actual building. All right, so maybe I'll see that.
That's Greek lettering right there.
Here he is worshiping Amun-Ra again. And this is a type of incense that is, it's really a liquid. You see it's going over, it could be water, it could be lotus oil, it could be any number of oils. He's worshiping him there. And they're doing a lot of restoration work over here. It looks like it's partially destroyed, so I can't see it. I believe there's another one that's even better that I will show you. Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Let's see. Isn't that pretty? Look at that.
Wow.
The colors are still bright.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's pause this for just a second. Steve, slightly slanted sleuth Steve, Khadija, just said the flail is representing the indifferent truth of physical existence.
I don't know.
The flail. We know we know what the lotus was representing. We know what the lotus oil was representing. We know what the ankh represents.
Well, usually you see the pharaoh with the crook and the flail, like this.
Right.
Okay. One is a shepherd. It's a shepherd who watches over his flocks. The other is flailing, is driving. So in this case, he's got it behind him, almost like he's saying there's no. It's almost how would I'm trying to say something
Snap
here.
too? Is it like a whipping?
Well, kind of no, the opposite.
Okay.
Like he does not wish to use that at all. It's interesting. I read somewhere Schwaller was saying it was for measurement, but for what reason I have no idea. But I don't know. I think the flail, the holding it back like that means that he wasn't driving. He wasn't beating. He wasn't driving. He was more gentle, more come this way, more come to me. You know, I'm gentle. I'm a gentle spirit type of thing.
So
rather
instead
than
of a driving force, instead of being a
right,
kingship or
the
rulership.
opposite.
Okay.
The opposite, to being gentle and receptive, more receptive than driving.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm trying to make sense out of it.
Well, he had the two roles.
It was a symbol of royal power, and they usually had both, as Khadija pointed out.
Yeah.
And one was for ruling by sheep herding, and the other one was ruling by violence, or it's basically
Driving,
like the carrot and the stick approach.
Yeah, kind of like the whip, like the the whip and the shepherd's flock watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hi, Posey. All right, folks, it's 7 minutes until the end of the upper hour. So just remember, Scotty Roberts starts right after, he starts at 10 o'clock Eastern. And I don't know if Robert's doing anything I didn't hear. So just be aware of the time, folks. And if you have to leave and come back and listen later, because this is going to take a little bit longer. Go ahead, Video.
I mean, we're talking, what, 5,000, 6,000 years of time. Now I shall go around the other side, because I think that we'll see one over here that's even more. There's more of those beautiful.
Just incredibly and well preserved.
You will see the king running, and
you don't expect to see it in that great a condition after thousands of years.
For the temple of the bulls, yes, and the people were feasting. Amenhotep was very generous. He was noted for that. He was called the Magnificent Pharaoh because he had a magnificent court. In his court, there were more than 300 women. Here we go, they tore this one up. See how they bashed it to take the penis out? I thought it was a bunch of Christian people that were completely freaked out and couldn't deal with sex. In the Victorian times, it was considered to be
probably.
Whatever it was very quiet. But here you can really see that building I told you about more clearly. There's the lotus. There it is, and you come down. Now, the very bottom of the lotus, there is a symbol that's going around and this way. This is the Shin, eternity. And there is on each side, the lettuce. See it? The lettuce going up and down. The lotus in the middle. It's an actual building. Now, whether it means that it was this building or another, I don't know. But it's this place where you go to have your problems taken care of, so to speak. They had actual clinics where you went, and they treated with blue lotus people who were sexually dysfunctional, because it's very good for either women or men who have problems with their sexual function. So here we begin. And then I found something else interesting. The women in Egypt, there we go again with the lotus in the temple, in Min-Amen, with full erection. And the women of Egypt, it's very important for them to give birth. If they don't have a child, then they are considered an outcast. It's a horrible situation for a woman, especially the village people. The man can then he can take up to 4 or 5 wives, 4 wives, as many concubines as he likes. And that's what's going to happen if she doesn't have a child. So from what I understand, the women, oh, there's my lady. The women used to scrape off part of the penis off the temple, put it in tea, and hope that they would become pregnant. Now, here we have a beautiful fresco
What?
of the beloved one.
Yeah.
On his knees, that's Amenhotep III, wearing a white crown of Upper Egypt. And that must be Betha, because I can't tell from here. Scratch that really bad. The reason I think it is because my lady Sekhmet, my favorite, for whom I am her priestess, is holding a staff which is a palm frond, which is counting the years. In other words, she is blessing him with long life, but she is counting the years on the palm fronds, which have these little indentions where the leaves were. It makes a perfect symbol for counting of the years. And he is holding here the crook. Now, I don't see the flail. So here he's being a shepherd to his people. The flail he's driving. The crook he's leading. And here he's giving what looks like, I'm trying to get a good look at that. Oh yeah, okay. It's some kind of beautiful symbolic, this is He, millions of years. And I think this is Betha, I can't tell. Oh no, it's Amun-Ra. You see the feathers now. See how they bash everything up? All right, so that's my lady Sekhmet, the lioness, the great lioness. All right, here we go. Here's a fresco of the boat. You can get a little bit of an idea what it looked like. Somewhere in the temple there is the Opet festival, showing the Opet festival. But here you can see the boat, and you can see Amenhotep III, Neb-Ra, his name means I'm the truth and the light. So Neb-Mat, the goddess of truth, Ra, the god of light. I'm the light of this world, kind of, he's saying. Worshipping this boat has within it probably Amun-Ra's golden statue that they're bringing to the Naos. Oh, it's, I said to you, I'm giving to you health. I said, I'm giving to you joy. I said, I'm giving to you life and stability. That's what that says right there, see? And guess what he's offering? Blue lotus.
Blue lotus.
Nymphaea coelia. And guess what else? Lettuce. People don't see this because they don't realize it, but I do. So we are about to start using this flower here. 3 farms, and then we're going to distill the oils, and we're going to use them for treatment of sexual dysfunction in human beings. Now, I had a chemist tell me that this flower is actually the greatest component for fighting cancer. So I don't know because it's so rare, but I have it growing in my yard, and we're going to grow it. This man, look at this gorgeous face. Is he sweet or what? Isma K. Hammond? Mohammed? Ah, Mabruk, Mohammed Gamil. Say hello, everybody. He's sweet. Look at his face. As sweet as he can be. He's kind of bringing me around. He wants me to see certain things. They know, the guardians know. A lot of them know more than you think they know, don't they? كل سنة وأنت طيب. في بنتي 5. Oh my God. ولد ولا بنت؟ 4.
3 ولد و2 بنت.
1. Oh wow. 4 boys and 1 girl. مبروك جدا. انت رمسي second. He said it's a big deal when they have children. So anyway, well, he's like Ramsey's 5 kids. They all have a lot of kids to take care of, and they don't have the salaries here suck canal water. All right, so here's a pretty little portico, and here we have another little. Is this a birth chamber, Hammond? The Amenhotep III?
No, statue Amun.
Oh, Ammon was here. Okay. There's one where it's the birth channel, the divine birth.
It's here. Lived here.
Fame.
No,
Where? I said. I'm old and shit, not older than dirt, and it's kind of slow. See how dangerous this is? We're going to eliminate this problem. There's a group of us, we're getting ready to build something here for old folks like me. See that sidewalk right there? We're going to build something more beautiful than that. That's going to run through the temple for old people so that we can not have to break our neck. Because if you look up and you're not paying attention, you're done. I have fallen on my butt a couple of times. It's only by the grace of God that I'm not dead. Well, he's going to take me and show me the divine birth room, which is what I wanted to see. I know it's here. I get confused. It's a big temple. Everything looks like everything else. It's kind of like a bunch of Japanese people. You can't tell who's who. Or white people, any other race. Okay. Now he's taking me to the divine birth chamber. Hammond. Fain, Hina? Hina? Okay. Where is it? I said. He said it's here. Okay. He knows this temple better than any archaeologist because he's here all the time. Now I'll just ask him to show me and I'll give him a nice big fat tip, which is what he'll give me more than he makes probably in a half a month. So he's telling me that this is, well, we have more. Oh, God. Look at this. This is death. Oh, it's all ruined and all messed up. You can't even see it. This is supposed to be the divine birth room, I guess. I can't tell, I think. شكرا حبيبي. Hammond, فين fresco Opet festival?
What?
Fresco Opet.
Obit.
Festival Opet. فين?
Obit.
Opet festival.
Obit Temple Karma.
لا 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 لا.
No, Luxor.
Ah, here, yes. Yes, they came here.
Oh,
He thinks it took place there. He's wrong. Malish Habibi.
Al-Iskandar.
Where?
Iskandar.
Wait, Faye. Alexander.
Al-Iskandar.
He's got Alexander the Great came here. Oh my God. Ay, coño. Ay, scheiße. Excuse me. Almost fell. At least I'll die happy. I'll die happy. I'm the only one in this temple with him. He is so lovely. Shukran, sweetness. Shukran gazilan, ham. Thank you very much, I said. Shwaya shwaya, habibi. I got my umbrella today because it's going to get into the hundreds. But I came early in order to avoid the heat. And he's stuck here.
Al-Iskandar.
Hey,
Here.
Skander?
Al-Iskandar Khartush. Al-Iskandar.
So let me Alexander's cartouche is here and I'll examine it later. But I can't see a thing now. It just came in from the light. Why is he, did he build this? Alexander D?
Iskandar Gil.
And are the nails.
Oh,
D and nails. D, nails.
no.
Nails. I'm trying to explain them. This is the nails. But he won't show me this, the cartouche of Skander. I'm trying to look and see. Can you guys see anything? It's so dark in here. Oh, Isis. Beautiful. There it is. Well, I'm trying to explain to you over and over again. This was a celebration temple of the southern harem with the healing lotus and the lotus and lettuce that they had. I wonder if you combine that, if it makes it more powerful. Maybe I'll try. Here we have again, Menamin. What you want to show me, honey? Huh?
Iskandar.
Alexander?
Al-Iskandar.
I'm a fish. Oh, D. Say this is Alexander. He said that's Alexander. Damn if I know. I can't see nothing. You don't know how dark these places get, especially when an old bag like me. Dear Khadija. That's a bunch of shit, I said. I'm joking. Alhamdulillah. Class? Okay. Now I'm going to end this. If I find the one I wanted to show, I'll give it to you. But I want to give him some backsheesh. Watch this. I love this stuff. I love doing this. I think they make probably, God knows, maybe 500 pounds a month. I don't know. كل سنة وانت طيبة. شكرا حبيبي. باي باي محمد.
باي باي.
Take care, huh?
باي باي.
تمام؟
تمام.
Alhamdulillah. Say goodbye to my friends. Goodbye, America.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Australia. Goodbye, Europe. God bless all of you.
Bye.
Bye. As we're walking out of this beautiful temple, I just want to make one thing, because my sense of humor never leaves me. Amenhotep III was a really big womanizer. He loved ladies, and he had 300 wives in his harem, the most beautiful princesses and royal women of any. Okay, sweetheart. Tamam? ما فيش مشكلة حبيبي. He's telling me be careful. Of course I am. What am I going to do, fall? Yeah, I might. I miss twice, I'm old. So anyway, the story goes that one of the ambassadors came and said, we need to see Amenhotep III because we have a complaint from my king. So he goes in and sees the king, and the king says, what is the problem? He goes, well, the king gave you her sister for marriage, and he has not heard from her or seen her since she came to Egypt. And the king said, oh, I'm so sorry. Shall you go and see her and tell the king she is fine? And he said, of course I will. Amenhotep takes him to the door of the royal harem, which has got to be the most beautiful thing that anyone's ever seen. And opens the door and says, you know, Fadale, in other words, please go in. Do you see her? And he's embarrassed because 300 gorgeous women arrayed in silks, golds, diamonds, jewels. I mean, maybe not diamonds, but lapis, carnelian, lapis lazuli, carnelian, and turquoise. And and he can't figure out which one she is. And the king sat there, leaning against the door, laughing. And the man is embarrassed to death because he doesn't even know the king's sister if he saw her, especially since there were another 300 or so there. And so I guess he went back and told the king, yes, sir, I'm sure she's fine. I'm sure that everything went good. She's being well taken care of. She lives in a beautiful place. And can you imagine living in luxury with all these beautiful women and having never to worry about one single thing? But of course, did he ever see her? We don't know. History doesn't tell us. I have a feeling the king just laughed. Maybe he pointed out one of them. Maybe he doesn't know which one it is. Another thing about Amenhotep III was his chief wife, Ti, was a very shrewd woman. She knew he loved women. Sometimes when they were together, not he and her, but himself and a bunch of dignitaries who had come to visit Egypt, the king would be sitting there, and right in the middle of a correspondence, he would stand up and say, I shall go to the harem for 1 hour. And everybody quietly smiled because they knew what he was going to the harem to do, take his afternoon rest, with 300 gorgeous women massaging him, giving him wine to drink, rubbing blue lotus on certain parts of his body, and probably having wild orgy. Maybe not. As he got older, he probably didn't even visit. But Tia was very happy to let him do that, because then she had the reins, and she really was the power behind the throne. Tia was a woman, we don't know exactly what her lineage is. Some people say that she was born from a couple, Yuya and Tuyu. He was the chief charioteer of Amenhotep's army and master of the horse, and great man who really doesn't look Egyptian when you look at him. He's got a big hook nose and blonde hair. Some people say he was from Israel, but that doesn't make any sense because his wife, Tuyu, was definitely Egyptian, definitely. I don't know if they ever did any DNA studies on it. I got to ask Dr. Zahi if he'll let me. You saw that in film. You never know what you're going to find when you see him. But anyway, so she ruled with an iron fist. And whenever the dignitaries would come to Egypt, they would say, we need to see the queen, because toward the middle and end of his life, Amenhotep suffered terribly from dental disease. He had terrible alveolar abscesses, and that's what finally killed him. He was corpulent, so fat he could hardly walk, living a life of total, you know, can you imagine, you can eat all you want, you do whatever you like, you're God Almighty type of thing? Well, that was him. And he paid terribly for it in his later years by being terribly overweight and unable to rule. But he didn't care, because Ti was as strong as 10 of them, and she was not the least bit fat and strong as an ox. And actually, when people would say, we need to see the great queen, they wanted to see her, because that's when things got done. They didn't really get done under Amenhotep because he was so ill, poor thing. So when he passed on, she actually reigned in his stead until such time as his son, Amenhotep IV, better known as Akhenaten, took over. And there's some speculation about the rulership, whether or not they actually, that the king actually co-ruled with his son. And it made me wonder why. Why did he co-rule so long? Something like maybe up to 14 years. We're not sure of the time limit, but if that's true, then that shows that he was a very young man, unable to rule alone, and his father, either that or dad, wasn't going to let go of the reins. Kind of a Queen Elizabeth type, lives forever, you know. You're sitting there and you're waiting to kick the bucket, and they just living and living. I think Queen Elizabeth is eternal. I don't think she's ever going to go, but her husband did, so she's not going to be long behind him. Usually that's what happens. Mark my words, within 2 years she won't be here. And Prince Charles will finally wear the crown, waiting all these years. So anyway, the same with Amenhotep. He lived to be, I think, probably in his 50s maybe, which is a long time for Egypt. We're not sure about Ti, her time limit, but she didn't die for quite a long time. And then she was alive during the reign of her son, Amenhotep IV, better known as Akhenaten, the first individual in history, according to Breasted, the believer in one essence, one God alone. But now we just found the city of Aten, which is right by the Valley of the Kings. Now the city of Aten, which I think I already sent you on that, but I'm going to make another video and narrate it, was during the time of Amenhotep III, they say. So what does that tell you? That tells you that Amenhotep was really into Aten, right? It may have been him, in fact, who discussed this with his son. And at the time, the priesthood of Ammon had a great deal of power, and maybe his father was worried about that. And he told him, listen, son, you should be worshiping the gods of Heliopolis. In other words, Ammon, Ra, is actually a combination of Ammon and Ra is the sun god of Heliopolis, ancient Anu. And they were talking about this at the time, because the priesthood had gained an enormous amount of power, and there were some problems going on, and that I know they did have one fresco where they found one correspondence where Akhenaten said, they're saying worse things about me than they did about my father. So there was definitely a problem. Now we talk about this situation with Aten. The city, like I said, has just been found by a team of archaeologists, Egyptian, every single one, led by Dr. Zahi Hawass. And it's a complete town. Imagine all those foreigners who walked over this and didn't know that the whole town was there. Bessie Bryan has said it's the most important discovery since the tomb of Tutankhamun. And I will tell you that this great and holy city, which we'll visit, and I'll walk around in the ruins and do another narration and tell you a little bit more about what was going on during the 18th dynasty. Now, I am Khadija Hammond. I am married to Dr. Saeed Higazi, who used to be the director of both Karnak and Luxor Temple and the Valley of the Kings and the Queens, whom I have known for well over 30 years. I've been studying for close to 50 years now. People call me doctora, but I never did get a degree, thank God, because the according to John Anthony West, the smallest book in the library is called New Ideas in Egyptology. So they still spouting the same old crap that's been spouted over and over, and then they get this degree, whereupon some of them, not all of them, put their noses in the air, and they think that those of us who study on our own are just amateurs. Well, let me tell you something, all of you quackademics. Why don't you start thinking with your own mind and quit being afraid to express ideas? Because I have no problem with it. You know, I don't have any axe to grind. I can say exactly what I think, all right? And what I think is that this Southern Heliopolis celebrated, this great temple, which was raised up and called the Southern Harem, was actually celebrating the sexual act itself as being procreative in power, bringing in the next generation, bringing in new blood, bringing in the next king, bringing in the next queen, and all the people who were here at the time. And I will tell you, quite frankly, I know that's what this was because of all the frescoes of men Hammond, celebrating men and his sexual aspect. Now, there used to be a ceremony that went on in the temple where they called it Hammond being creative, whereupon he was, I hate to say this, but he was jacking off because he was alone, and they said that the hand that jacked him off was the hand of Hathor. So he created the universe in a burst of energy. So it's like the Big Bang, and using sex as an example when you have an orgasm, you kind of do have a Big Bang. And it's the extreme ecstasy of it is what causes people to be addicted to the act itself. So it's all tied together with the great people who had no qualms and no shame about what these things were. And I can tell you that when you put all that behind you and start looking at it for what it really is, it is a beautiful and holy act between two people who truly love each other and are creating the third point, which is a child. So if you look at it that way, you'll soon learn that it's a beautiful thing. And I hope all of you find your soulmate, and as you experience the sacred marriage. And I'll be talking with you about the sacred marriage when I'm in the temple, when I'm in the city of Aten. All of you have a beautiful time, and I'm wishing you happy Ramadan, all my Muslim friends. Kulli sana wa inta tayyibin, Allahu akbar, Allahu akram, Allahu akbar. And I said, I'm wishing all of you a happy new year. This is the new year for us. And also, I'm wishing you the compassion of God, and God is great.
Love your photographs, Khadija.
Mm-hmm. No, that's my boy.
Yeah.
Well, that was an eye opener, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
I've seen those before. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody asked if you knew John Anthony West. Yes.
Very well.
Very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John was my bud. He used to stay with me whenever he had groups, and I was living in Gizza Plateau at the time, and I had an apartment, and he always came and stayed with me whenever he'd come a week or two early, and we had some great conversations. One time he came and stayed with me right after an earthquake, the only one I've ever experienced in Egypt, and it was so funny because the day before it happened, I was sitting there in the village with my friends on the street. We were talking and laughing. And suddenly I said, have you ever had an earthquake here? And they looked at me and they said, no, Madame Khadija, not in hundreds of years. The very next morning they had an earthquake. And those people swore I was a witch. I was some kind of a witch. I don't know why I asked that question unless, the earth makes sounds. I may have picked up on it somehow.
Yeah.
Part of me picked up there was going to be one. But we were sitting up there. And we had several aftershocks, and this was the day after, and John had just come in, and he went, is that an earthquake? And I said, scared you, didn't it? And I was laughing. I said, no, that's a aftershock. But he looked like his eyes were round. I mean, he looked like he was going to run downstairs, Nowhere to go during an earthquake.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Hey,
I didn't know.
Hey, Sister Delaney. Good to see you.
Yeah, that's some amazing footage, definitely. Except that I'm trying, as I'm looking at it, I'm trying to imagine what it would have looked like in the ancient times with the roof intact and everything, because that roof
Oh,
must have been enormous. Because that's an enormous area, and we can only imagine what the smells
Well,
inside would have been contained, because they would have used cedar wood, because cedar grows like
yeah.
extremely tall, so those must have been like huge
Well,
trusses.
believe it or not, the set designer and decorators and costume designers in the Charlton Heston version of Moses, um, or Ten Commandments was the name of the movie.
I believe so, yeah.
They did probably one of the best. Now, I'm not talking about the plot itself or the acting, but they did some of the best research in terms of the materials and fabrics that were used, jewelry that
yeah,
was used. They got down to the nth level of detail because I had to take the classes on it for the set design class. I couldn't believe the amount of time they put into the research to get everything down to a goblet, down to a
Hmm.
wine goblet. So if you watch that movie, it'll give you a fairly good idea of how the kind of bedding they used and the drapery and everything
They
else.
used a lot of papyrus, and they made
Hmm.
most of their clothing out of linen.
Yeah.
And linen, that's not exactly a comfortable material. That's
Mm-mm.
kind of harsh. I mean, it's not as comfortable as polyester
Well, now
or
the harem would have had silk.
yeah, maybe silk. Except
The
that silk comes
Turkish
from the
traders,
Orient. That
yes,
comes
they got it in from the Orient and the Turks.
and the
well, you know,
Turks. Yeah.
Labib Habashi was a very famous Egyptologist back in those times, and he was the advisor for that movie. So everything was done according to ancient. Um, Everything was done exactly like the ancient people would have had it, and I was so happy, so happy. Hi, Desert Rose. No, thank you. And I was so happy to see that it was done right because I see some movies that are horrible. I mean, they didn't pay the least bit of attention to what they were doing, but that's one of the best. And some of my friends from the El Gabri family, El Gabri Studios were involved in that. So they talk of their father was involved in making the movie, and it's just amazing. It's so much fun. Have you ever been on set of a movie when it was being made? It's
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
John Anthony West and Robert Chalk, they were down there talking in the Sphinx Temple, and we were rolling, and they were going, "All right, action, action, action." And John said, we're coming. And they said, cut, cut.
Hmm.
Excuse me. But
Uh-oh.
yeah, I got a little cough going on, don't I? Maybe the COVID is back. No, I'm kidding. No,
Nah,
no, no,
nah,
no,
don't
no,
even say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't think it
no.
into
No,
existence.
no, no. It left on the 5:15.
That's just a leftover after effect. I've had
Yeah.
that out in the backyard working with my plants all day today.
Mhm.
I was
I
like,
sometimes
So
get it from air conditioning. I get it
yeah.
from air conditioning
so
sometimes.
is Luxor still empty of tourists at this time?
Well, it's not a lot of tourism still. I mean, we're
Yeah.
thinking it's going to come back, but really, there's not a lot. It's mostly we just had the
Hmm.
holidays here. We had the end of Ramadan, which is called the Eid, the feast. Oh, and
Hmm.
it was so funny because it was all Egyptians here
Yeah.
in Giza. And all these young boys walking around, they were like the fawns or whatever with their hair. They've got this new style where where all their hair is shaved except the top. And it's got all those
Oh
curls
yeah.
hanging down and looking really sharp and really, spitfire and cutest things. I mean, I just think kids are great anyway, you know.
Yeah, they are.
And so it was mostly Egyptians here. I haven't seen a whole lot of foreign people, but I met a
Hmm.
lady from where was she from? Slovakia.
Yeah.
That we were
Yeah,
talking,
wow, I know
and
exactly where that is.
I'm always meeting people from all different countries, Germany, Slovakia. The next
Hmm.
day, I met somebody from India, a bunch of Greeks. And that's what's so neat about living here. You meet people. It's like the United Nations in a
Yeah.
good way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
Well,
imagine. It's like
I
tourist areas anywhere else on Earth where you find very few local people. It's mostly tourists.
Yeah, it's interesting to meet all these people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping I'll be able to give you some more great film pretty soon. I just see where I go.
See, what struck me as really interesting is the fact that you got Luxor and you got Karnak, and Karnak, you have a Karnak in France, and that's a megalithic site consisting of miles and miles of standing stones that are aligned going into the sea, and it's like a huge complex of megalithic structures. It's called
Wow.
Karnak, which is really strange because it's the exact same name as Karnak, Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
that's right next to Luxembourg, and that sounds like a bit like Luxor. Yeah.
well, these are modern names though, because the temple was known as the greatest of places, and
Mhm.
Karnak means the apartment. So somebody gave it that name later on because
Yeah,
it's so
possibly.
spread out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, for those
Possibly.
those
Yeah.
who came into the program much later, go back when you can, listen to the introduction right before the video starts playing. There's a discussion there about how this temple is built, why it was built over 2 ley lines, what it means when it's trying to ignite the energy with the way the stone is constructed and the feminine masculine energy to provide that balance of feminine and masculine. So
Yeah.
we
Because
talk
it's
about that. So go back and listen
kind
to
of.
that.
I would say that the floor plan of that temple is kind of like a sigil, and a
Yeah.
sigil that's put over like 2 ley lines in the shape of an X, X symbolizing the feminine. And I would argue that sigils rule the world because uh, when you look downright at it, what happened when you gave that man at the
Yeah.
temple a banknote? What did you give him? You gave him a sigil
Yeah.
written on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Everything is sigils. We're ruled by sigils. Everything from corporate logos to the letters of the alphabet, everything, art, science, electronics, everything is sigils.
Well, it's almost 10:30, but I just want to thank everybody. And Khadija, one last question for you. You said at the beginning, and you've said it to us in private with me and Lori talking, that many of these temples and structures are still activated. That stone is still there. The ley lines are still there. The earth may have shifted a little, but the energy centers are there. You're having
Oh yeah.
you're having tons of mystical experiences in different locations. And so, did you ever have any at the harem?
What I had there was this immense understanding. It's hard to put into words, like I was saying before, of the joy of the what spring really is in a very spiritual sense. The feeling of why it is so joyful, and the birds singing and everything being reborn. It's like a reawakening, but on a different level, like another creation, going back to even when we were first created, when when this universe came into being. Because I believe there have been many universes, and there are many. I don't believe it's just one, and so that it's a constant process. And I felt at peace with it. It's interesting because I was talking to Edgar Mitchell about his experience when he came back from the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and he was on the ship on the way back, and he said he had the most beautiful feeling that everything was the way it's supposed to be, that it is a constant process, that everything is forever and eternal, that it just goes on, and it's joyful. It's almost like a dance, like when you do a dance to one song and then there's a different song, you do a different dance, but you're always dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're always happy.
Yep.
So that's what I realized from the temple is that everything was eternal, and everything was constantly creating, and that it was a joyful experience.
Yeah.
And
No, that's what
yeah,
the dream I had was, or the vision was, a celebration, joy, and rebirth. Birth and
yes,
rebirth, celebration, and joy.
Yeah.
Another thing I would like to point out about the Luxor Temple, I think there must have been scaffolding inside originally, because how else would you have been able to, as a visitor, see all those all that artwork? You can't see that from the ground.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Well, you have to be at an
Definitely.
angle. You have to be at an angle, right? Like a 45-degree.
Exactly. And see, the artist who drew that would have taken that into consideration. That it would be viewed from an angle, but those all look to me like they were designed to be looked at dead on, which means from
Interesting.
some type of scaffold inside the structure itself.
Unless it was
Definitely,
loose
yeah.
and not detached to the columns, because they haven't found any grooves or latches or rings or holes in any of the columns to suggest that there was any flooring.
Yeah,
So it would have had to have been
some
detached
of
super scaffolding, like you're talking about. Yeah.
like us, yeah, you don't necessarily need anchoring like that because Egypt doesn't get high winds. They don't get a lot of storms. When they
Oh yeah,
do
we
have,
do.
well, it's like once a year. It's like once a year.
We get the storms from hell. You can't believe it. The other day they had one. I tell you what's weird about Egypt.
See what we
The
can
other
do, Barry.
One of my friends swore that I told her, I said, I think you have a jinn. And it was so weird because the storms came up and it was only on her side. It wasn't near my house. It wasn't near the boat where I was staying. It was just around there, the same area. Great big windstorm. It looked like a tornado storm out of sand. I couldn't believe it. And it tore up her garden. She swore it was a tenant that didn't. She swore a tenant put the evil eye on it. We believe in that over here. Yeah, you believe in the evil eye. You know, you could put the eye on somebody. It's
Hey,
really,
you know, Barry's being
Does that
funny.
evil eye tie in with the Eye of Horus? Do you think that ties in somehow?
No, I don't, because the Horus eye is supposed to be good luck, the eye of
But that
God.
depends if it's the left eye or the right eye.
One's the moon and one is the sun.
Yeah, but
Oh, excuse me. Oh, it's catching up with me now.
I know.
I'm gonna go because
Barry,
I'm so sleepy. I can't keep my eyes open anymore.
No worries.
And I love you.
Barry was being funny, Khadija. He said he'll settle for 6 or 7 of the harem women. You know, 6 or 7.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Why 300?
You'd be lucky if you had a 1.
Why 300? Why were there 300?
Well, a lot of them were political marriages. You know, they married for political reasons, to cement their countries together. And so that was one of the things. But anytime he would write a letter, he did write a letter where he said, "Send me your most beautiful women to my harem," because it was a way of, you know, showing off, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, speaking of giants, Scotty Roberts is talking about giants again, and I think he has a guest with him tonight. Hop over there, y'all, because he's got a Native American perspective on the giants. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, he's talking with his buddy. If he's over there, if anybody's been over there, let me know. I think Ruben Fast Horse was supposed to come on and talk with Scotty tonight.
Fast Horse.
Ruben Fast Horse. Yeah.
Cool. I like that. Okay,
yeah,
guys.
He's a cool dude. All right, Khadija, get some
sleep. Love
sleep.
you guys.
Go to sleep.
Thank you, Khadija. Thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Get some
Until
rest.
next time.
Much love.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, honey. Bye-bye.
All righty, everybody. Well, if there's no more questions, Dalbert, did you have anything you wanted to wrap up with? Did you want to say anything in conclusion to tonight's thing? What did you get out of
aside from the observations I made while viewing the video, I don't think I have anything original to contribute to it, because, you know, I'm looking at it the way a tourist would look at it, because, you know, and I'd be curious to see, you know, some of these individual glyphs or individual scenes or paintings up close. And that's, as a tourist, I feel that, you know, maybe it was intended that way. Maybe it was intended that the tourists only saw the lower levels, whereas the initiates got to go up on the scaffolding and see the higher levels. That maybe there were different levels of meaning to the stories that were depicted in those paintings. along with the accompanying text. Because don't forget, back in ancient times, most people couldn't read or write. Most people were illiterate, which leads to the question: whom exactly were these these works of art intended for? Because they're accompanied by a lot of text, and most people couldn't read. So was this only for the initiates, or only for the priests, or who was it intended for? Was it intended for us, for people in the future to discover and find out more about what their culture was like? In other words, just like we're thinking of them now, were they thinking of us back then? It's an interesting question that I sometimes think about.
In other words, they could have been documenting not for the current day, but for the future.
For us,
because it's their way of keeping a journal. It's their way of saying this is what we believed in. Now, Steve mentioned something slightly slanted. Steve, before he had to leave earlier on when he came in, he said the glyphs are often repeated over and over and over because it's the same thing as the Bible, having different verses and different chapters telling the same story or same themes over and over and over. Maybe the reason they had so many layers, and the only way you're going to know this is if you're there looking at it yourself to confirm this, but it could be that they go around with one layer of the story, and then they go around, because they didn't create these overnight all at one time.
True.
Just like the rock cliffs in Australia, where over centuries they were painting different ships that came and visited the islands.
Yes, they did it over centuries, if not millennia. Yes, but
so maybe they started at the top and worked their way down with their story. You don't know until you.
They chronicled their history.
That's what I mean.
They carved it into stone to last forever, so it's a way to remember.
Even though you get the feeling that this was all carved at the same time, because the style is the same, the depth is the same. The format is roughly the same. So in other words, they had accumulated these stories and these texts over thousands of years, or hundreds or thousands of years, and then at one time when they finished this temple, at the same time they put this all in stone. So that also says a lot. In other words, they treasured these stories enough to put them in stone,
record them,
and they could have been expanding. Like, let's say, for the past 10 years, we've had a perspective that most of your work is internal. You're going through your darkest night of the soul.
Yes.
But then we find out. But then we find out in the next 10 or 20 years that there's more to it than that. And so we tell a story about how we understand that it's also connecting at a higher consciousness, and we try to record what that means. So in other words, as they're evolving their spirituality, as you got to the very bottom part of it, which was that century, that king, about the lotus leaf and using the lotus elixir, it could be that they just kept adding on to their story over time.
That's the chemical level, because what is an herb? An herb is what they used in place of what we call prescription drugs today,
right?
Or vitamins. So that was their medicine. So that's maybe an allegory for some let's say a mental disorder. And then it's a psychological disorder, and then it becomes a physical disorder at the very bottom.
Right.
And that's something that they try to set in stone. And we know from other discoveries that we've made on like pottery, ancient papyruses, and stuff like that. Ancient Egyptian culture was probably one of the best documented ancient cultures that we know of. They documented everything, like everything from food recipes to how their board games were played, everything from local politics to news of the day. We know everything about them.
Yes, Brandy, I believe Annie XD mentioned that the Bible is written in code as to the times based on the constellations and seasons. Wouldn't the Egyptians do the same? Yes, they would, and so have the Hopi, and apparently some of your other civilizations. They all did that.
Which ties in with my theory that since this was covered up by some kind of a superstructure, some kind of a roof, it was probably designed so that at certain times of the year, like spring, summer, winter, fall, certain stories would have been more visible than others. Some would have been highlighted by the natural movement of the sun.
Right.
Some would have pertained to springtime, as Khadija points out, and some would have pertained to autumn, when the sun makes a slower arc over the horizon.
I just want to conclude with one thing because everybody's saying goodbye. I just wanted to conclude with one point here. For me, this presentation of hers and this visit to this particular area of Luxor was very meaningful, as I told you in the beginning, because it woke me up to some things, or had me jog my DNA memory, and I wasn't expecting it. But what I get mostly, and everybody's going to take away something, but my biggest takeaway from this was listening to the different groups that we have, where you've got one group of women who are aggressively seeking to take back energy and dominate the male energy. And the reason they're doing that is because the pendulum swung so far from Atlantis all through to the now, where you have a predominantly heavy scale of male energy. Then there's another group, and I kind of fall into this group, is that I understand the need for the scales to be balanced. Because that balance, as above, so below, as within, without, you have to have both. And it doesn't matter if I'm in a relationship or not right now. It doesn't matter if I ever will be. It doesn't matter that I never had kids. It doesn't matter that I procreated even when I wanted to. It's not what the plan was, okay? So the point is that I have the balance internally of the masculine and the feminine energies. I just can't go through the process of the copulation, okay? But I have it within my heart. And many, many women do. And many, many men do. It's not about one group of sex taking over another group. It's not about the men dominating the women or the women dominating the men. It's about mutual respect. And it's about love, and it's about respecting other people and finding that balance of both of those energies, with or without the sex part, finding that energy and that balance. And that's what these folks did. It meant so much to them that they built an entire structure to house the women in for the procreation process and act itself. But it meant so much to them that they built it on an energy ley, on the cross of the energy of two ley lines. And they built it as an amplification system to amplify that process in themselves. They even had the lotus elixir as an aphrodisiac, but also as a healer, because they were trying to help people heal. Why were they trying to help the women? So that they could become pregnant. Why were they trying to help the men? So that they could get the women pregnant? Because they understood you had to have a balance of male and female, a balance of masculine and feminine. You know, and so I've had people come into the chat room, or I've had people send me emails, I've had people write me letters, and I'm like, no, Andromeda 7 might be 7 sisters, but we're not like Xena the warrior or the Amazon women who are trying to get out and disrupt the balance of, no, we're very much the opposite, you know, and I can't think of one single one of us that believes in this new movement that's going on right now in the spiritual community of trying to overload or overtake the masculine and stomp it out.
Well, see, honestly, even from a male perspective, I don't think most people think in sexual terms. Most people don't think in terms of men and women. You know, most people think in terms of absolute being. You know, I don't think of any woman as a woman necessarily. I don't. I see the pureness of the soul. And that's the essence of the soul. And in a sense, I almost tend to ignore the sexual aspect. The way I look at it is this: I too have never married, never had children, the whole bit.
Right,
But
right.
that's because I look at it this way: to a certain extent, each one of us is kind of like a figure on a chessboard, and the 2 players or 3 players or whatever are the gods. And so, for some reason, the gods didn't see it right that this figure on the chessboard encounter this figure on the chessboard and do something. In other words, so it's not necessarily favorable to strain that and to exert your own will where it might not necessarily be appropriate.
Yeah.
In other words, if the gods want it, it will happen.
Yeah. Women had to do a lot during the past several decades. They had to take on a lot of responsibilities because of all the wars, and the men were out. Men and women both served, but the majority were men serving, and the women were home raising the children, working in the factories, converting the factories over to weapons. I'm just saying that women took on a more aggressive role, and now there's so many that are without partners. Because the family unit has busted apart. And I'm not trying to get into politics. I'm just simply
marriage has been discredited by the state by making divorce almost impossible for the man. That's why men don't want marriage, because if they discover that it doesn't work, then they basically lose all their assets.
Yeah. See now you get to understand, how the state, how the religious structures and the states set things up in such a way that it threw that whole balance off. And they want to keep us off balance so they can control us. Well, I'm here to say that you're not going to keep me off balance. I don't care who you are. I'm never going to turn my back on brothers. I'm never going to turn my back on the importance of men in society and relationships. As far as if there's anything I have to say or do about it, there will be a balance. And that message is out there for all these women who are out there saying they want to take back, and step in and take control, and only women can rule the world, and it needs to go back to the way it was in Lemuria. Bull. You need, to those people, I say, I love you, but you need to rethink some things. You're not really connecting. If you really connected and understood our relationship to one another, to animals, to vegetables, to plants, to creator, to source, to men, to other women, you would understand that balance.
See, and that balance has been upset by the state, because the state has taken the role of the male, because the state now provides the security blanket that normally was provided by the male by actually emasculating the male and the female in the process. In other words, the state has upset the natural balance by its interference in human affairs.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I never would have thought that an exploration of an ancient temple in the middle of some other country would have me on the flare like that. But I'm like, that's what it did for me. That's what it did for me, and I remember how it was.
They had politics back then too.
Yeah. Of course they did. They created it.
Of course, we've always had politics, and that's the problem.
We took a wrong turn.
That's the problem. I always say it like this: that's the problem with government is actually politics. That if we could find a system of government that's devoid of politics, then we would have less problems in society. We wouldn't have as many wars.
I need to find it. Julianne Payne posted a YouTube video either today or last night that explained, somebody's breaking the code just like she does, only he's doing it. It kind of follows up on some of the stuff Wayne had been talking about with admiralty law and the role of the Vatican, but it explained what humans are versus what mankind's role was supposed. We gave it away.
Yeah, basically.
God, Creator, made us sovereign, and we gave our sovereignty away. But we're getting it back. We're getting it back by understanding that we gave it away.
by listening to people who have no right to dictate what we do in our day-to-day lives, by imbuing them with the authority to do so. In other words, like if you take today's situation with the corona, the first do-gooder out there who put the mask on, he's the one who screwed it up for everybody else.
That's right.
Basically.
That's right.
Everybody because at this point it's too late for like humanity rising up as a collective, to overthrow. No, it's too late. The first person that conformed is the one who screwed it up.
Yeah.
We created the religion. That was the first thing. We created religion.
That's the same thing as
state
worship.
Started worshiping gods and goddesses, and then we created the hierarchy of the government and the state. Yes. So we gave away our sovereignty, and we've been living under this rule all this time, and it finally hit me. And I would like to get that YouTube. I'm going to get that from the Dropbox, the text box that Jules put it in, and I'm going to put it out as an update so that everybody gets to see it. I'm sure a lot of people have, but that really also hit home on top of this discussion. And that it's that unification and that balance that's so greatly needed in both energies.
Exactly. Because Egypt had female pharaohs, although yes, they had fewer female pharaohs than male pharaohs. Well, why? Because I guess men tend to be more domineering, not necessarily dominant, but domineering. You had like Hatshepsut, and she was like, she put on the beard, despite the fact that she was a woman, and she wasn't the only one. So, if gender or sex was not regarded as a defining characteristic of rulership at all. And most of these gender roles are just artificial anyway, because, for example, you were mentioning the fact that women were working in the factories. My grandmother, under Nazi occupation in Czechoslovakia, she worked in a hand grenade factory, making hand grenades. Under World War II. What else? In my own family, my mom, she is a mechanical engineer designing machinery. So, which is you would typically think is a male-dominated field. So, stereotypes are one thing, but reality is something else.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to bail. We've already been at Esoteric Egypt is one of those shows that tends to go for almost 2 hours, and there's a reason why. There's a lot to cover, and it's bad enough when our regular Friday shows go over 10 or 15 minutes, or even an hour and 20. But we sure do appreciate everyone hanging in there with us and our listening audience. It's segments of it you'll come back and listen to, So, but thank you everyone in the chat room, our moderators. Great job up front, by the way, and throughout. We love you all. You take care, and we'll see you Friday night. We have Michelle Marie coming on. Hey, Michelle Camfree, your buddy Michelle Marie is coming on.
That's right.
She's going to talk about sound and healing.
Yeah.
And some of the research. Yeah, Dalbor, I'm going to drop you the link. She's going to talk about some of the science she's uncovered with regards to
interesting.
It's somatics and
cymatics. Yeah, that needs to be studied more.
Yeah. So it has to do with that. Has to do with her Middle Eastern esotericism.
That ties in with the crystal network and crystals, because crystals have their own frequency, therefore their own sound.
Right. Yeah.
Everything ties in together, and even with ancient Egypt, because every single one of those obelisks, that's actually a quartz crystal.
Yep.
So
I believe it's an antenna.
Yeah.
She's looking at that right now.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. She's looking at that. Right. She's been looking at those CIA documents too.
Fascinating.
And some of their experiments. Yeah. So she's learning a lot. She's another go-getter like Mandy. She learns a lot.
Yeah.
But she does it from a tremendous heart space.
Yes.
She's very connected, and she has the Eastern esotericism, as opposed to mine was more Western. I have a mix of Western and Eastern, but she is really studying it.
And speaking of Western and Eastern, even when you look at the images of the pharaohs, you see like a great mix of different ethnicities. Some of them came from the east, some came from the west, some came from the south, some came from the north.
Yeah.
Some look like classical sub-Saharan Africans, some look like Orientals, and some look like classical Europeans. So that was, I would say, one of the first multicultural societies on Earth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
right.
Bye, everybody.
Everybody have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dalibor. Get some sleep.
Thank you, Del.
Go to bed.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
I will. I shall.